great fourth graders. They've been practicing for a long time, and they're excited and happy to present the rock cycle and other pioneer themes.
The landscape of this region has been lifted and cracked, submerged and shattered, wind blasted and flooded over countless eons. Its stories are as old as time.
And the landscape is covered in stories. If you look for them, they flow over this state like a magic life potion.
Where's Professor Stone? She told me to meet here at 7 o'clock sharp. We're going to start our tinker at the Great Salt Lake. Ah, Professor Stone, there you are.
They told me years ago that this place used to be covered in a giant fresh water lake. It wasn't the Great Salt Lake. Anciently it was called, I think it was Lake Bonbon's Bonfire.
It was Lake Bonneville.
Thank you, that's it, Lake Bonneville. If this place used to be covered in water, there must be sedimentary rocks with dinosaur remains.
Well, this looks like a good spot. Let's start digging. Oh, Gazooks! It's alive! Yeah. Of course I'm alive. I've existed for millions of years. That makes me a heck of a lot older than you are. Wait a minute. Who are you anyway?
I'm Professor Stone.
And I'm her graduate assistant, Pebble. Right now, we're conducting research for the geological evidences of past life in this region, particularly the remainings of the Cretaceous era. We'll pick right here, archaeologists, but be careful, I'm ticklish.
What kind of dinosaur is this?
I believe, Professor, that is a fossilized Pachycephalosaurus skull.
A Pachycephalosaurus.
Yeah, it wasn't the most famous dinosaur in the world, but it did set a record.
Allosaurus liked to bite, its teeth were sharp as sabers. It frequently with great delight made mincemeat of its neighbors. Allosaurus liked to hunt, and when it caught its quarry, it tore it open back and front and never said I'm sorry. Allosaurus liked to eat, and using teeth and talons, it stuffed itself with tons of meat and guzzled blood by gallons. Allosaurus liked to munch and kept from growing thinner, but gnawing an enormous bunch, then rushing off to dinner.
Fascinating.
Pressure, pressure, pressure! Hey, the story of my life! I see you again, Meta. Meta, you've morphed since I saw you. I'm not the only one who's morphed. The whole state has changed. You're right, Meta. Utah didn't always look the way it does now. Long, long ago, massive piles of ice and snow, called glaciers, formed in Utah's mountains. Thick layers of it covered the ground.
You're right, my nerd assistant. Slowly the glaciers began to move. They crept downhill and took dirt and rocks, like you, with them. As the land worn away, canyons and valleys covered Utah's mountains.
Yeah, then the weather began to change. The ice began to melt. The water from the melting glaciers ran down the canyons and into a growing lake. The lake spread over the flat land of the Great Basin and through the canyons and mountain valleys. Well, I watched the ancient lake wash up against what's called the Wasatch Mountain. It made a bench. In fact, if you look close enough, you can still see it sitting on the mountain today. The water line shows how high Lake Bonneville reached.
After a long time, the lake covered much of Utah. Then, the water cut a huge new river that drained all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
Right on, Professor Stone. All that's left of Lake Bonneville is now the Great Salt Lake, Utah Lake, and Sevier Lake. These and other natural events have created the three regions of Utah.
Physiographic regions of Utah.
Everybody knows we're a And just a few million years ago, he blew his top up all over southern Utah.
Talking rocks. Fascinating.
So you all know each other?
Are you kidding? We are the rock group of Utah.
The story is told of a rock that was formed down deep within the earth. The heat and pressure was so that a volcano erupted and gave to that rock its birth on earth. And igneous was its name. Igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic are the three rocks of the rock cycle. Shooby-dooby-doo-wop. Once upon a time, some little pebbles and little shells decided to be pressed together, combined into a new rock with a brand new identity. And it said, please call me sedimentary. Igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic are the three rocks of the rock cycle. Shooby-dooby-doo-wop. The final chapter is hell. It's of a chemical reaction changing our friends above from granite or shale into a slate, a quartz, and a marble, or just a nice. They all are called metamorphic rocks. Igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic are the three rocks of the rock cycle. Shooby-dooby-doo-wop. On the earth and in the sea, all the rocks just happen to be part of the rock cycle. Shooby-dooby-doo-wop. All the rocks are in the rock cycle. Rockin' and rollin' in the rock cycle. From California to Ohio. Rockin' and rollin' in the rock cycle. It is the rock, part of the rock. It is the rock cycle.
I see you know a lot about this place. How about the three of you assisting us on our quest?
What are you looking for?
Well, we've already found a dinosaur bone.
Now we're searching for the remains of the ancient ones. Where should we look?
It's not just about looking. We have to smell their fires, taste their meals, feel their sorrows, and hear their voices.
Fascinating.
Oh, brother.
When white men came to Utah, the Indian tribes were here. They gathered seeds from grasses, caught fish and hunted deer. Lived in wickiups and teepees, caves and holdouts too. Indian tribes of Utah worship different things. The air, the wind, the thunder, and even lightning. Believing in a great spirit to whom the tribe would pray. For strength to overcome the trials they faced each day. The youth Paiutes and Goshes, Shoshones, Navajos. The Indian tribes of Utah that lived here long ago. Throughout the mountain valleys, they lived and hunted game. The Ute tribe is where Utah got its name.
I knew the Utah Indians well. I remember when the Spanish missionaries met with them.
Who was the missionary who kept the fine journal and made maps of Utah? Was it Escargo, Eskimo,
Escalante. It was Escalante. Yes, it was Father Sylvester de Escalante and Father Francisco Dominguez in 1776, I believe.
Thank you, Father Escalante.
They both mapped out parts of Utah and made journals. Father Escalante's journal especially told us more about early Utah.
Spanish explorers searched to find a way from Santa Fe, New Mexico, onto California, to Monterey. They traveled through Utah with mountain streets so clear, impressed with what they saw, all the natural beauty that was here. They explored each new horizon, kept on going every day, went through Utah on their way, couldn't stop, they couldn't stay, in their search for Monterey. Father Escalante and Father Dominguez led the expedition. They tried to find the way to Monterey. Took records and journals, drew maps of the terrain. They said of Utah Valley, it's the most beautiful in New Spain. They explored each new horizon, kept on going every day, went through Utah on their way, didn't stop and couldn't stay, in their search for Monterey. They loved the lakes and mountains, fished along the shore, made friends with all the Indians, continued on once more to Monterey. The winter came early and stopped them in their tracks. Couldn't get to Monterey, they had to travel back to Santa Fe. They explored each new horizon, kept on going every day, went through Utah on their way, couldn't get to Monterey, and went back to Santa Fe. Olé!
And after Father Escalante came all those rugged mountain men and explorers. These men were fur trappers who explored the mountains and rivers of the West for beaver and other animals.
The trappers of Europe killed all the beaver there. My mom, my dad, my sisters and brothers, and even my Aunt Ruth. They thought they needed American beaver fur for their hats.
I'm sorry to hear about your relatives, but your clan, motivated much more mountain men to explore the West.
Like who?
In 1800, beaver hats were worn throughout the land. In Paris, London, and New York, the hats were in demand. So men were sent out west to trap and trade for lots of fur. In the Rocky Mountain streams, that's where the beaver were. Fur traders and trappers were known as mountain men. Blazed trails in Utah where no one else had been. They paved the way for others to come and settle here. Those who followed in their tracks, Mormon and pioneer. Jim Bridger, Jedediah Smith, Peter Ogden, and Provo are a few of these mountain men that each of us should know. Explore the Rocky Mountains and return back home again with lots of furs and stories of places they had been. For traders and trappers were known as mountain men. Blazed trails in Utah where no one else had been. They paved the way for others to come and settle here. Those who followed in their tracks, the Mormon pioneer. Those who followed in their tracks, the Mormon pioneers.
They flour pudding and buffalo liver. That would put me 6 feet under.
That's a good one, Meta.
The explorers didn't stay though. They left thinking no one would ever survive this barren wasteland.
Well, a good riddance to those home wreckers. They practically wiped us out.
The fact that no one else wanted to live here was an advantage for the Mormon pioneers. They were escaping a religious persecution and thought that they would be left alone if they moved out here. Yes, they moved about 15,000 people across the desert.
The Mormon pioneers certainly proved them all wrong, though. They made the desert blossom as a rose. They called it their Zion. Now everyone from everywhere is moving in.
Look, a new type of rock. It seems to have layers. Would this be a relative of yours, said?
That's not a rock, that's a buffalo chip.
A what chip?
A buffalo chip. You know what the pioneers used for fuel? Technically, Professor, it is.
Lily pads floating on the sea of prairie grass. Heat for the teepees or the homesteader's cabin. Nothing wasted in the West. And every boy knew that a good sharp stick or a pointy-toed shoe would let you know if one was just right or a little too new. And I'm here to tell you that compared to a good dry ship, meaning a west wind's invitation, a frisbee is a weak and poor plastic imitation.
really use that for fuel? Wonder what dinner smelled like. Cooking with buffalo chips doesn't sound too inviting.
Life is really hard for the pioneers. For many, it is agonizing encounter with the reality of death. Children stood stunned in silence as they watched graves being did for parents, siblings, and playmates.
Laura Swenson, age 8, watched her father die after a wagon accident. Her mother died 7 days later in childbirth, leaving Laura with 4 younger sisters to proceed to the Salt Lake Valley as orphans.
I'll never forget that sweet little girl writing in her journal. I have just passed my 9th birthday. It wasn't much of a celebration. I don't think we'll ever reach our destination. And all this walking. I am so tired. Today I held on to the cart only to be pushed away. I was so frustrated, I threw myself down on the road and cried like a baby. Nobody came to comfort me, and when I looked up, they were all passing me by. So I jumped to my feet and made an extra run to catch up.
Mormon pioneers came across the plains.
for the pioneers. They did have some fun, though. I remember them romping and stomping all over the places some nights.
It was their form of aerobic exercise. And they didn't have to worry about a sedentary life.
Honor your partner. Right elbow swing and round you go. Left elbow swing, now don't be slow. Take both hands, go around once more. Now do-si-do to where you were before. Head couple, sashay down the line. Now come back home, you're doing fine. Cast off and down that line you fly. To raise that arch and raise it high. Till everyone has gone on through. And we can start the dance anew. Honor your partner. Right elbow swing and round you go. Left elbow swing, now don't be slow. Take both hands, go around once more. Now do-si-do to where you were before. Head couple, sashay down the line. Now come back home, you're doing fine. Cast off and down that line you fly. To raise that arch and raise it high. Till everyone has gone through. And we can start the dance anew. Honor your partner. Right elbow swing and round you go. Left elbow swing, now don't be slow. Take both hands, go around once more. Now do-si-do to where you were before. Head couple, sashay down the line. Now come back home, you're doing fine. Cast off and down that line you fly. To raise that arch and raise it high. Till everyone has gone on through. And we can start the dance anew.
No wonder Father was praying for their souls. They walked all day and danced all night.
Woo, Nellie! I have a letter for Professor Stone.
Why, that's me. Thank you, young man. But why are you giving it to me on a horse? Is your mail truck broke down?
Mail truck, never heard of such a thing. That'll be $3 now. Gotta go.
Wait! Where are you going?
I need to meet the next rider. You gotta finish delivering this here mail to Sacramento, California.
Sacramento, Keller. Are you a Pony Express rider?
In the flesh, I'm one of the 80 riders. Now really, I gotta get going. Snow, sleet, rain, or shine, the Pony Express rider gets there on time.
Fascinating. One of the 80 riders. Unbelievable.
I read somewhere that they rode 1,966 miles all the way from Sacramento, all the way from Missouri to California. You're right. There were 190 relay stations across the U.S.
It didn't last long, though.
19 months to be exact. Once the telegraph wires were connected, there wasn't much use for the Pony Express.
Early pioneers needed many things that had to be
brought outside of Utah, such as sugar, soap, hats, shoes, nails, bullets, and just about everything else they needed to survive. Hundreds of wagon trains came loaded with these precious items. Stagecoaches brought the mail and passengers. It took a lot of skill to drive them. Strong horses, bad weather, and terrible dirt roads made this job hard. The stagecoaches, however, were much faster than wagon trains. It took them about 14 days to travel from the Mississippi River to Utah. Settlers anxiously awaited their arrival as they brought letters from friends and family.
Wagon trains, stagecoaches, and handcarts. Any other way they came out west?
Professor, remember your lecture on the significance of promontory Utah?
Oh yes, I remember now. That was my topic just last week.
In 1869, the Union Pacific Railroad out of Omaha, Nebraska, met the miraculous Central Pacific out of Sacramento, California. After years of backbreaking labor, blasting tunnels through the treacherous Sierra Nevadas, and laying endless miles of track across the frozen prairie, the two rail lines finally met at Promontory, Utah. Puffing steam, two railroad engines, Union Pacific's 119 and Central Pacific's Jupiter, faced each other on the tracks. The governor of California then took a swing at the last railroad spike made of gold. He missed! The vice president of Union Pacific then took a swing at the last railroad spike. He missed too! Finally, a road worker took over. He had driven many railroad spikes, and he didn't miss. With one swing, he drove the golden spike. The wedding of the rails was complete. Hail to the highway of the nations. Utah bids you welcome. Cheers ring out across America.
Great event that took place in our history was the building of the railroad tracks from sea to shining sea. The Union Pacific from the east and Central from the west, racing toward each other to prove which one was best. Iron wheels are rolling down the Newville track. Each train kept on going, no car turning back. A lot of tired workers laying rails along the line, met at Promontory Point in 1869. The going wasn't easy, there were mountains to go through, with solid rock to blast away, had to build some bridges too. Across the rolling prairie, they struggled hard each day, and finally came together, was on the 10th of May. Iron wheels were rolling down the Newville track, each train kept on going, no car turning back. A lot of tired workers laying rails along the line, met at Promontory Point in 1869. It was quite a celebration, what a noise the crowd made when they drove that golden spike and the final track was laid. Transcontinental Railroad joined the east and west as one. With its wedding of the rails, a new age had begun. Iron wheels were rolling down the Newville track. Each train kept on going, no car turning back. A lot of tired workers laying rails along the line, met at Promontory Point in 1869. They met at Promontory Point in 1869.
The wedding of the rails was one of the most significant events that happened in the United States, and it happened here in Promontory, Utah.
It took an army of workers to lay down those rails. Speaking of armies, it took an army of leaders of citizens of Utah to make the changes needed to make it a state.
Oh my heck, we've tried 6 times to become a state. Will it ever happen? Who will be a Democrat? Who will be a Republican? We need both parties. Yes, we need to separate church and state.
No
several changes were made by the officials of Utah, the United States government said Utah could become a state. A constitution was written.
On January 4th, 1896, Grover Cleveland, the President of the United States, signed the paper that made Utah the 45th state.
At 9:13 a.m., Superintendent Brent of Western Union rushed out of his office with a shotgun and fired 2 shots in the air, signaling the news.
A small boy dived for cover thinking there was a robbery in progress. The news spread like wildfire. A festivity was marked to claim the event.
Monday after the signing day was a public holiday for Thanksgiving and rejoicing.
All schools were closed. Fascinating.
possible.
Without their generous contributions, Utah would not be what it is today. So keep those contributions coming.
Gosh, Professor, you've got a class to teach in a few minutes. Better get tracking again.
You're right. Thanks for sharing this journey with me, Rock Root of Utah. It was simply fascinating.
Boy, that wore me right out. I'm gonna go settle in for 1,000-year nap. I wonder if I'll recognize this place when I reach the surface again.
And I can't promise you when I'll awaken again, but I assure you that you will know it.